Before we get into this video, I just want to make one thing really clear. I have no formal training in filming or in editing. I'm entirely self-taught by Googling things I didn't know how to do. And I tell you this because I want you to know that you don't have to be an expert in all the tech stuff. And if you feel overwhelmed at the moment because you're wanting to take your yoga classes online and you don't know how, then let me tell you, I was in the same place you are. I also want to remind you that you only have to take the very next step. You don't have to know everything now. So we're going to step through it today nice and slowly, but if by the end of this video you feel like, whoa, that was too much information, just take the first step and worry about all the other steps later. All right, so step one for me when making a video is always to sit down and do some planning. Yes, I could just turn my camera on and wing a class, and yes, I have certainly done that before. But I find that the classes that I take the time to plan, to think about who I'm making it for, to think about how I'm going to title it and what thumbnail I'm going to put with it, they do much better generally than when I just wing it. Take the time to actually plan what you're going to film, what you're going to call your video, because all of these things are going to help your video to actually be found on the internet. And whilst, yes, I have no doubt you can just teach a really beautiful yoga class off the cuff, unfortunately, when it comes to teaching yoga online, you also have to think about how your audience is going to find you. And there are a certain number of tips and tricks that I'll talk about in this video about how you can make sure you're doing that so people actually can enjoy your classes. Because I know you're teaching great classes, doing it right online is more about how people are going to find your classes. So I keep a running list of ideas because I'm always coming across new ideas after talking to people, working in a counseling space, doing one-to-one yoga sessions. Often after those in-person sessions, I have some really great ideas. So I do keep a running list because I found if I didn't have a system for this, I just ended up with post-its everywhere and it wasn't very helpful. So now I use the software Notion. And what I really love about this is it lets you organize by boards. So I have one that is just ideas. So I just dump ideas down there and then I can move them along if I've started planning that content, if I've started filming, editing, because often I have 2 to sometimes 5 or 6 videos on the go at once, and this kind of lets me keep track of where they are just by moving them across as I'm working on them. Of course, if you're just getting started, there's absolutely no reason you couldn't just keep a paper copy of a list, but I found that as the years went on, sometimes I would get to ideas and sometimes I wouldn't, and then I'd have to transfer it across the different books I was using. This way, ideas being kept digitally meant I don't have to do that year to year. If you're not teaching in-person classes and you're not feeling super inspired, you don't know what classes to put out there on the internet, there are a number of ways to find those ideas that aren't just coming from your own creative genius. Something that I've been doing every year is I survey my audience. So I send out an email, I ask a number of questions about what they like best, what they like least. And for sure, my questions are getting better every year as I'm getting more connected and closer to my audience and I really understand who I'm creating videos for. But if you're just getting started, maybe you've taken email lists from your in-person classes. Can you send them an email and ask them a few questions about what they like most about your classes, what they're having the most trouble with, what they struggle with in yoga, and those are the things you can teach to in your online classes. Another way you can find ideas is look at what other people are doing in your niche. So a niche is just that smaller area of the community or of the topic that you're serving. So for me, I mostly work yoga for mothers around fertility, pregnancy, and postpartum. So pregnancy yoga on its own is a niche. Fertility yoga on its own is a niche, but put together, I guess it creates quite a unique audience that I'm in particular serving. So who do you want to serve? Is it yoga around anxiety? Can you look into Google or on YouTube for yoga for anxiety and see what's really popular? So the first thing that pops up is probably getting the most number of views or is most popular at the moment. What can you take from that class? How can you make it better? How can you make it more your own? This will just give you ideas around what sort of topics. Even just typing in yoga for into Google will give you a huge list of the types of things people are searching for. And so of course, yes, you'll find things like yoga for stress, which I know any yoga class is going to help impact your stress levels. And I know it kind of feels a little bit counterintuitive because so many of the things that we might target are things that any yoga class would work for. But I guess this is just the game of the internet in terms of making it really specific and niche. And instead of getting caught up in this feels a little bit silly and a little bit wrong, see if you can just kind of learn to play the internet game. Because like I said, if you believe in your classes and you believe in the practice of yoga and its ability to help people. This is just a tool to help people find your classes. And then one final tool you can use to help you find ideas for your classes is use the website Answer the Public. So you can put in any topic and it will come up with a list of questions that people are asking about that topic on Google. So for instance, if I put in pregnancy yoga, it's going to give me a whole list of questions that people ask about pregnancy yoga. And then if I wanted to, I could go along and make a video answering all of those questions. So now that I've got my bank of ideas for what I'm going to make a yoga class about, it's time to actually plan out the class that I'm going to film today. So what that looks like for me is I like to now work on pen and paper. I don't know what it is. Maybe it's just throwback to my early teacher training days where I was planning my classes on a scrap of paper before going to teach them. I just like to plan my classes on paper. So the things that I'm going to plan out are, who is this class for? What problem am I trying to solve? So for instance, it might be a pregnancy yoga class. It's for the 3rd trimester. What problem is it going to solve? It's going to help ease some anxiety around birth. So within the class, I'll be talking about birth, I'll be talking about positive affirmations, might use some mantra, we might do some chanting, and then I'm also going to think about what poses are going to accompany that. So what are we going to be doing in that class? What poses are suitable for the 3rd trimester? So from there, I'll plan my sequence out, which sometimes looks like just writing the list of asana names. Other times I'll just draw little stick pictures so I know what pose I'm doing next. And most of the time I'll just have it on a piece of paper in front of me. I'll stick it just in front of the mat where the camera is not picking it up when I'm filming classes. Or if I'm being super organized, I'll write it on a whiteboard and put it on the tripod of the camera so that when I'm teaching a class and I'm just looking up, my audience won't be able to tell that I'm checking for what I'm doing next, but I kind of get that visual clue of, oh, that was what I had planned to put in next. Another great tool you can use is vidIQ, just to check your keywords around what video it is. So if you have decided to create a class for the 3rd trimester pregnancy, you can type that into vidIQ and it will tell you whether those keywords are highly searchable. So how many people are searching for those terms and also how much competition you have. So how many other videos are made for that topic. Just because you get something in the amber or in the red doesn't mean you don't make that video. If it's a really important video for your audience, absolutely make it. Some of my lower performing videos are some of my most popular videos in terms of people who reach out to me via email. So it doesn't mean it can't communicate and connect to your audience just because it's not rated well by vidIQ, but it just does give you an idea of maybe some better words to use to talk about in your video and to use when titling and doing your thumbnail so people can find what you're actually talking about or teaching to in the video. And the last thing that I make sure that I plan is my thumbnail. Now, I am notoriously bad at doing this, but when I'm doing it right, so this is how I'm going to teach you to do it, is I plan what my thumbnail is going to look like in the planning stage, because once I get to filming, I'm usually filming a number of classes at one time, and I often forget to take that thumbnail video. The thumbnail is your advertisement for your video. It's the most important thing next to the title that's going to catch your audience's attention and make them click on the video. The energy that you put into your thumbnail is kind of like the energy you should be putting into marketing your in-person classes and telling people about your classes. And you've got one image to do that, and it's a particularly small image. So have a think about what might capture the essence of this video, how you can communicate that, and how you can connect with your audience. So let's do it. This is my attempt at the thumbnail for this video. Maybe a bit closer. You're a little far away. Which, hot tip, eye contact is one of the big things that helps people be drawn into your video when you're making strong eye contact with the camera. So now that it's time to film, I want you to pick a well-lit spot that has the light facing you. So you'll see this spot that I'm about to film in is clear of clutter. There's just a couch and a couple of plants. So I'm facing a window. I do also have studio lights if I want to film in any of the other angles in my office, because sometimes I like to mix it up a little bit. But if you're just getting started and you don't have the light, just pick a place in your house that has you facing the window. The more light you have on your face, the less eye bags you'll have, which is super important when you're a mum, and you'll also just look better overall. So the ideal filming weather is either bright sunlight, so no clouds in the sky, or completely overcast, and then you might bring in some studio lights to just help lighten the space a little bit more. If it's a day with a few clouds in the sky, it can be super tricky because the clouds will come in and out and your light will change, and either your camera will have to adjust and then you'll have to fix the light in edit, or you'll have to adjust your camera as the light changes. So it's always best just to have bright sunlight like it is today, or a completely overcast day so you're not having that change in lighting. As for filming equipment, I use the Canon M50. I've used this one for years. I picked it because it has great video quality and also allows me to film for 30 minutes at a time. The last SLR that I had would only film for 10 minutes, and it was super annoying because I'd have to keep coming back or watching that the camera hadn't turned off mid-yoga class. So this one does 30 minutes and I just keep an eye on the time and then I hit record again if I'm doing a longer class. I also use the Sennheiser lapel microphones. So this sits on my body here on the side so I can still lie on my back, and then the cord runs up inside my shirt and just sits here on my shirt. What this means is I can move all the way back away from the camera and the audio quality is still good because it's feeding into the camera, into the top. And this is what makes the audio sound so good, instead of having just the camera recording audio and then when I move back you would get that kind of echo in the room. In the past I have recorded on my iPhone, and while if you go back and look at my very first videos, which are super dodgy, iPhone quality video these days has changed a lot. Remember, I first started about 8 years ago, so these days iPhones are suitable for filming. In terms of audio, there's a couple of things you can do. You can get a lapel mic like this that will click into your phone. That's going to be the easiest option and give you the best audio when you move away from the phone. Or if you don't want to buy that microphone, I'd recommend filming in a carpeted room just so that you're not going to get the echo in the room. You could also film the yoga flow without any sound and then use the headphones that come with the iPhone. It actually has a little microphone in the headphones, and that would work for a voiceover. So you can record yourself with that voiceover after, so filming the video and audio separately. All right, so I'm gonna start getting set up here because this is where I'm filming my yoga class today. So I'm just gonna put my mat down, make sure the space looks nice, and then we'll have a little talk about how to get yourself ready to film. So as I'm starting to frame up my shot, I think about what you can see in the background, because sometimes I will have the full shot and sometimes I will crop in. So I really want you to think about, one, we're a little bit skewed here in this video here, so I'll adjust the camera up, and also what you can actually see in the background. For instance, at the moment you can see into my dining room. I might close that door so that you can't see into the other room. And I'll adjust up this tripod just so that we don't look quite so off center. I always have a look at the mat to see that it runs parallel to the bottom of the frame. Sometimes I have to also move the camera if I haven't quite got it in the right position. So the next thing you also want to check is if you are doing a standing flow, can you stand up and your hands still be seen? Even when I stand up, my head is chopped off. So this is going to be great for when we're doing flows down here on the ground. But if I want to stand up and do a full sun salutation or some standing poses, I'm going to need to adjust my camera. And sometimes I do that because I like it cropped in at the start, and then I'll open it up as we get more into the flow. So what I'll do is mid-filming, I'll just stop in a pose, go and adjust the camera, and then come back and get in that pose. So in edit, I can cut and it will hopefully look pretty seamless. So now that I've got my space ready, it's time to think about getting myself ready. I pretty much just make it look like I don't have bed hair, and I wear minimal makeup, like my tinted moisturizer and a bit of mascara. I'm not a makeup person, but you do you. Like I said, as long as you've got good lighting, most of the time I find that's enough. And I wouldn't wear makeup to a yoga class, so I feel a bit weird having a full face of makeup teaching a yoga class. It's a good idea to also check that your jewelry's not gonna make any noises. So I found I can't wear multiple bracelets because as I move, you'll hear that chinking. Same with earrings. Bigger earrings can sometimes make a little bit of noise. You want to make sure if you're using a lapel mic that it's not touching your clothes, because if it touches clothes, you'll get a little bit of static. And because I've been doing this for a while and I've had lots and lots of frustrating days where things haven't gone to plan, I always check my batteries of my microphone. So there's one here on me and then one on the camera, and the battery of the camera, and I always have my spare battery charging as I start filming, even if it's at 100%. It's just like a little ritual I have to do now to make sure that if this battery in the camera goes flat, I have one ready to swap over, because too many times I've been called out with 2 flat batteries and then I really lose momentum, and that class is kind of just a waste because I find I can't often get started again once I wait for the battery to charge. One last check before I get started, I always check that the sound is working properly. So I've got the microphones turned on and I'll do a little test here with the camera. Testing 1, 2, 3, testing 1, 2, 3, and then I'll replay back this footage through the camera just to check that I've got sound. Because again, I've also filmed many yoga classes that have 0 sound, and that also means that entire class was just a waste of time. So as you can see, this shirt is not actually ideal for filming, because as I come up into a down dog, it's kind of hanging and the microphone is likely going to be picking up static. So even though it's gonna look super weird in my video, because suddenly I'm going to lose a jumper, we're gonna lose the jumper. I'd rather that than bad audio. All right, so that's a wrap for today. As you saw, I pretty much filmed start to finish. Though if I do happen to make any mistakes, or if the dog barks, or if someone comes to the door, I just always make sure that I stop and start in the same place. Sometimes if I make a mistake when I'm talking, I'll just edit out. Oh my God. Sometimes when I make a mistake when I'm talking, I'll just restart the whole phrase so that I can cut out the mistakes. Oh, it's like talking about mistakes is making this even worse than it normally is. I usually like to film between 2 and 4 classes at a time, just because the setup usually takes a little bit of time. This room is not always this neat, so I'll clean it up for filming, I'll move my lights, etc., depending on the weather. So I like to film between 2 and 4 just to kind of batch those together. And then I've got a number of classes to edit, which I'll do all the editing together as well. In the past, I have tried to film more than 4 classes in one go, but my energy just lags by about the end of the 4th class. So I always try to not push myself past 4 classes. After filming, I am always starving, so I'm off to go and have some lunch. And then usually I like to have a pretty chill afternoon after doing film, just because it does take a lot of energy to not only be teaching the class and have that teaching presence, but because I'm filming on my own, to have all the awareness of the tech stuff, the camera, making sure that the battery's still working, making sure that it's still recording, the lights are okay. It's a lot to think about. So when you're first getting started, if you can only do one class and you're like, I'm zonked, that's okay. I've been doing this for years. You will build up your stamina. You will get better at it. It will become more automatic and won't feel as tricky. So if you're just getting started, please keep persevering. You will get there. All right, so the next step is getting the footage off the camera and onto an external hard drive. And the reason I use this and not just straight onto my laptop is it just makes my laptop run so slowly. And often I can only work with one video at a time. Whereas usually I'm kind of part editing one video, and then I'll want to edit just a quick yoga video, which doesn't take super long to edit. And if I'm doing it all on my laptop, it would just be super slow. So this makes it so much faster and keeps your laptop nice and speedy. So because my laptop doesn't have an SD card port, I have to use this little converter. So then this just clips straight into my laptop, and so does my external hard drive. And from there, I always take the footage straight away after I filmed it from the SD card and put it in a separate folder on my hard drive, labeled with the date that I filmed. And if I'm being really good, I'll label the individual footage to what video it's related to. That way, if I don't come back to editing for maybe a few days or even a few weeks, I can still find the footage that I'm looking for. Trust me, it will save a lot of headaches. Once I'm actually ready to edit the footage, I'll open up Final Cut Pro. So Final Cut Pro is actually a paid software program. I chose it because it was just a once-off payment and you don't have to pay a subscription. I did actually start though on iMovie, and that's absolutely a perfect place to start. It will let you do basic titling, and the reason I upgraded to Final Cut Pro is because I wanted a little bit more fancy titling, and also you can layer elements on top of each other. So iMovie will only allow you to have one thing pop up at a time, whereas Final Cut Pro you can layer as many as you want on top of each other, so you can have things moving in and out at any time in your videos. Not as important for yoga classes, but it is more important for these like informational videos where I might want multiple things to pop up all at once. So if I'm editing a yoga class, I'll open up a new project, I'll save that project as, and I'll import the footage from the folder on the hard drive that I've already saved, but I'll ask it to leave the files in place. And all this means is it just doesn't double copy everything, save space on your hard drive, and just keeps things running more smoothly. From there, I'll pull the footage down into the line down here where I can start working with it. So from here, I can edit out all the mistakes. So literally, I just watch the video and cut, delete any of the mistakes out. And then I'll go through and add in any titles, maybe any music, check the volume to make sure that you can still hear my instruction over the music. And then I'll often re-watch it one more time in its entirety to check it for mistakes before I export the audio and video to the hard drive. So while now, yes, you could potentially upload that video straight from there to YouTube, in my experience, it takes far too long. So I use the program Compressor, which will compress your video file down to much smaller without impacting the quality, and that way it doesn't take 24 hours to upload to YouTube. So publishing to YouTube is pretty simple. Open up a browser to your YouTube studio, upload the video to where it says create. From here, you'll be asked to choose a title. So this is when those vidIQ keywords are really important to make sure that they're in your title. Add your description. Again, try and put as many of those keywords, obviously in a very natural, not over the top spammy way, but a way that feels natural to your style of writing. Just explain what the video is about. YouTube is pretty good now at determining what your video is from just from the video footage. It's scanning through everything you've said in the video, all of the content, to be able to know who to serve that video to. But it can help if in your description you're really emphasizing that and making it really clear what this video is about by using those keywords that you're trying to target. If you're monetized, from here you'll pick whether you want this video to be monetized or not. So what that's saying to YouTube is you want the before, after, or mid-roll videos into your video. So for any of my yoga classes or meditation practices, I never have a mid-roll video, only an end and a beginning, because I would hate for a practice to be interrupted by an annoying ad. But those before and after ads do earn me a little bit of money every month. You'll then be asked whether your video content needs to be checked for any of these things like firearms, foul language, sexual content, anything that's inappropriate for certain ages. You can choose to click none of the above, and if you consistently rate your videos properly, this is a really quick process and it will just move through the line to be published pretty quickly. From there, you can choose whether to schedule your video, so schedule it in the future, maybe mark it as unlisted, which means you could send that video link to only the people you want to watch it. So I use unlisted videos for any of my paid content. So any of my courses are unlisted videos that only get sent to those people who sign up for those courses. Or you can mark it as public, which means it's open to the whole of the internet and can be found in search. And then it's time to hit share, take a deep breath. You got this. And while yes, technically that's all you have to do to make a video and put it up on YouTube, you could stop there, but there are a number of things I recommend doing, especially if you're first getting started and you don't have that audience, you don't have those subscribers who are coming back to your videos time and time again. Do your best to share with the audience you have. So if you have an email list from people who've come to your in-person classes, if you have an Instagram account, even just your personal Facebook account, all of these are people that you can share it with who might even just have a look because they're curious, but those views are going to signal to YouTube that this is a video to watch. And hopefully they'll share it out in the browse pages, they'll share it out in search, and you'll notice that your video creeps up in popularity. It can be super hard and frustrating when you're first getting started to only get 3 views on a video and feel like I put in all of these hours of work and it didn't go anywhere. But little by little, the more you do, the better you get at making videos, the more it will be found. And suddenly one day you'll come back to a video and notice like, holy hell, that's got like 60,000 views, I didn't even know. And you'll get all these comments start to trickle in. And that's the beauty of YouTube. Because it is a search engine, it's going to start suggesting your videos. The more that you do around a single topic, you'll start to be known as yoga for this topic, which is exactly how I've grown my business, because now I'm known around pregnancy yoga, fertility yoga, and postpartum yoga. And when I produce a video on one of those topics, it gets shared to my existing audience, but it also gets shared to anyone searching for those topics on YouTube as well. And that's really all it is to start growing a following on YouTube or on the internet, to start growing an audience for your online yoga business. For me, it's been 7 years of planning, of creating, of sharing, of reflecting, and thinking about how I can do it better next time. And not giving up and not getting overwhelmed by thinking there's too many steps, just looking at the very next thing that I have to do. And not getting overwhelmed by the fact that my first videos looked like crap. And maybe in 5 years' time, I'm gonna look at this video and be like, oh, Bettina, what were you thinking? But that's okay. That's the process of creation. It's learning from what you've done. And if you don't get started, you can never improve. I really want to remind you that no one builds an online audience overnight. Like I said, for me, it's been about a 7-year journey of consistently creating videos and putting them out there. And now I have an online business that gratefully pays me a really decent income to do something that I really love. So keep going, keep persevering, keep trying, reach out to the community around you. Feel free to ask any questions that you have in the comments here. Learn from others who've done it before you. I have a course on this very thing, from starting with your initial idea of what you will share all the way through to how you will create it and getting practice actually doing the thing, actually getting started and getting over all of those internal beliefs and struggles and thoughts that come up when you do try to start something that can feel scary, like putting videos of yourself on the internet. So if you're interested in that course, it will be linked down in the description box. Make sure that you check it out. So now's the time to close down YouTube, get your camera out and film your first class. Good luck.